It's meant to be people who are otherwise healthy or healthy by all conventional metrics, but they have a lot of health anxiety. And this population is very ripe for a lot of the wellness marketing, from tons of supplements they don't need to all these different health tech things that they don't need to lots of obsessive life behaviors. And to be perfectly honest, I was in that period for a while myself. But I used to travel with my own balsamic vinegar so I wouldn't be exposed to certain salad oils. Yeah, I travel internationally with TSA approved packets of balsamic vinegar, right? So I understand all of this. I did tons of testing through functional medicine. I spent thousands of dollars on different stuff and supplements for all these protocols when I was totally healthy.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Chasing Excellence. My name is Patrick Cummings. As always, I am here with Ben Bergeron, and we are joined this week by a friend of the show, our friend, my favorite nutrition expert, EC Synkowski. How you doing, EC?
Awesome. Thanks so much for having me on.
You've been on a number of times before. I think maybe Heather's the only person who's been on more than you, but so folks will know you. Folks will recognize you. You're the creator of the 800 gram challenge of lazy macros. You and I also have a podcast together called The Consistency Project. And you run a company called Optimize Me Nutrition. We'll put show notes to all those things, or put links to all those things in the show notes for those folks who maybe are new to you, EC. Okay, every week on the show, we dedicate some time to exploring how we can live a life of better health and increased fulfillment. We answer your questions about the 5 factors of health, dive deep on living a life of excellence, explore the strategies and frameworks to help us chase what truly matters. Thank you, everybody out there, for joining us. What we've got this week with our friend EC, we've got listener questions about helping a teenager eat to be more competitive in their chosen sport, as well as how to balance the benefits of technology alongside intuition when it comes to our training and recovery. Our workout this week, our main conversation will be all about dealing with all of the things we're supposed to be doing in order to be healthy and the anxiety that can sometimes pop up when we feel like we're not doing enough. And then we'll wrap up our episode with a round of recommendations. We'll each give 1 or 2 things that we think you all out there should check out. All right, you ready, friends?
Let's do it.
All right, our warm up. We start each episode with listener questions about the 5 factors of health, those few fundamental behaviors that most positively affect our performance, vitality, and longevity. If you're new here, those 5 factors: how we eat, how we move, how we think, connect, and recover. We have got 2 questions this time around. The first one is in our eat category. It's from Andrew. This is what he says. Recently, my teenage son asked me how to put on muscle. It occurred to me that I know what to do for an adult, but not entirely sure when it comes to kids. For background, he plays basketball and is by far the smallest kid on the team. All heart, no height. That said, he is worried he will lose his place over the next few years if he doesn't get stronger, faster, etc. Knowing that he can't control his height, he wants to control what he can control. I can train with him, but how should he eat? Levels of protein, suggestions for carb intake for a young, active, growing kid. Anything you got, EC, please.
Yeah.
What should we do?
Yeah, so I don't really love giving a ton of specific recommendations for kids. And I get it, even for competitive teenagers who are really looking to improve in their sport. I'm just not really wild about it because I work with adults and I see how these habits shake out years and decades later. And I really think keeping the emphasis on healthy habits and keeping it flexible and helping them just leave the house knowing what a whole food diet looks like, primarily whole foods with some balance. Hats off to parents who achieve that. That's amazing. And I think it's a really job well done. And so I'm going to give some numbers here and stuff like that, because I know that this is a case where the person's really interested in athletics. But I think I just like to preface all of that with this, because I think we can really lose sight of that. And you're really setting them up for habits that they're going to use for their whole life. For this case, though, I also like to point out that teenage boys, they burn the most amount of calories out of any age or sex demographic. I mean, it's just because they're still growing. And then especially if they're active, it's something like from 13 to 18, they're probably on average 2,600 calories to I think up to like 3,600 calories per day. I mean, you always hear parents talking about how like, gosh, teenage boys, they're eating everything in the house. It's like, yes, there's a reason for that, because they are truly growing and burning a ton of calories, especially if they're active. And so that would just be the first thing that I would encourage this parent is maybe not worry as much about carbs specific or protein specific, but just have enough food around that they can eat healthy options generally, but also just eat enough. There's no way that this teenager is also going to be able to do this all on broccoli and cabbage. So having some maybe potatoes around and whole grains around and some of the snacks that he likes, in addition to some fruit, in addition to some veggies, he will be consuming a lot more than other people in the house, and that's okay. And make sure he's eating to satiety to really help fuel the level of activity and growth that he's going through. I think that's kind of the big overarching one. In terms of protein, there's not a ton of research on kids' protein needs. Certainly the number that I put out there, the 0.7 grams per pound, is a good guideline. Probably kids at that age, teenage guys, could be up to 1 gram per pound too. At that caloric need, he's probably going to hit that just by way of the fact that to get to that many calories, they're probably going to have that amount of protein in the diet. So I wouldn't be overly concerned about that so long as, you're teaching habits around having protein in each meal. Carbs will often shake out the 300 plus range. And I know that's going to sound really high for people listening to this podcast. But again, when you have to get to 3,500 calories on a day, how else are you going to get there? So for this dad, I would really just encourage having lots of whole foods around the house, encouraging to eat to satiety, also encouraging to have some snack foods too, because he's not going to do it all on broccoli, and be okay with that. And just know that, he needs a lot of fuel for the period of activity and life that he's in.
I love that. I would also, something that I know I've gotten from you is when you're trying to hit those super high protein numbers, which, yes, let's not geek out about the protein numbers, but it matters. And it's for anyone that has kids, they know that is the bigger struggle, I think, rather than the other stuff. It's like kids just aren't going to sit down and have, chicken breasts. Like that's the thing that you're fighting them on. Yes, it's eat your veggies, but it really, the protein thing is hard as a parent. And if we're trying to get to 0.7 or a gram for every pound of body weight, teenage boys are going to be somewhere in that 100 pound to 150 pounds. That's not an insignificant number. And to go back full circle, the thing that I've gotten from EC is protein shakes are a good way to do that. Mm-hmm. It's like, you don't like, if we want to, it's hard to get it in. It just is. And this is why protein shakes were invented. So I would actually just say like, that's a place that you can lean into as well. I think that if you do it with whole milk as opposed to water, you're upping the calorie intake a lot as well, with some, keeping it in the healthy realm. And then even adding in, like, God forbid, like adding in a little bit of a carbohydrate thing as well. Like, I'm not saying like supplement the kid like crazy, like get them all supped up. But if it becomes a big struggle and they like them, it's a viable option.
Yeah, that's great. I was going to ask you what your tips for kids and protein was. And heck, if you like the chocolate flavor and you can make a shake out of it, it can be a quite good option.
That's where we typically go. Our biggest kind of go-to is ground beef and chicken. It's a thing like that they'll do in burger form, or just ground beef in like taco form, like taco seasoning. But grilled chicken is always a big go-to as well. Everything else is tough. Actually, I take that back. Pork tenderloin. They actually like that a lot. It's like, they'll go back I think of like what they'll go back for seconds on, right? Because that's not a fight. So if they'll ever go back for seconds on something, I'm like, oh my God, more of that. Like every meal. The other one is it's a little cyclical. Like they like it, they don't, is eggs. Sometimes they like it, sometimes they don't. But they seem to like it a lot more if we do it in egg sandwich form. And I am not going to slow down at all them having that bread. Like it's not a bad thing at all. And so that's where that's like our main options.
Yeah, I mean, honestly, some of the recommendations for teenage boys, especially if they're struggling to put on mass, are the exact opposite of most of my recommendations to my clients. It's like, we need more calories. You need to keep eating, have calorically dense items, because it's really hard to get to 3,500 calories. Like it's a lot of food, and people, I think, don't totally appreciate how they're going to get. I mean, they're like, oh, just do it on vegetables. It's not going to happen, guys. Not going to happen.
Yeah.
EC, you started that with saying, I don't like to give targets, and that's something you and I have talked about in previous episodes. What do you do in lieu of or instead of targets, so that there is some amount of measurability, like even if it's just like a yes, no, we did that, or we didn't. Like, what do you replace targets with in order to avoid some of the downsides of being overly prescriptive or getting the kid to be overly worried or overly anxious on, did I do that number or did I get that number?
I think targets at meals are okay. Or even, I know, Ben, you've done it some of your challenges, like the tray idea. But even giving people just a general sense of quantity, I'm not against that. Like, we can teach kids that, there's about 30 grams of protein in typical serving sizes of chicken fillet at a restaurant or something like that. Like, I'm okay with that. I think what I don't like is, okay, every day we're going to perfectly tally in an app and, oh shoot, you're 10 grams. So come back down to the dinner table and have a third of a scoop of protein powder. So just some general things of like, okay, so we're going to try to hit a good amount of protein at each main meal. So let's first fill our plate with the protein that we need. And then we're going to add some veggies. And you know what? You need a lot of energy. So let's make sure you got some sweet potatoes on your plate. Are you still hungry? Great. Let's round it out with some rice, some nuts. What other foods do you like? And so I don't mind any of that type of general guidance and education. I don't want to think that, I'm not trying to say that we should be totally blind, but it's that perfect totaling mentality that takes all of the fun and flexibility out of nutrition that I really try to keep people against. And I know with our CrossFitters and score tracking that sometimes we can slant in the type A persona. So that's what I just like to really kind of caution people against.
I think that that picture of what it's supposed to be looking like, and you talked about the tray mentality, just for clarity what that is. It was a challenge that we ran that was kind of the old school cafeteria style trays with the different size sectioned plates. The big section was for your veggies, and another one for your starch or fruit, another one for your protein. That conceptually is close to what we do with our kids, but it's just not even nearly even that targeted. We're just trying to keep them eating real food. And did you get some protein, and did you get some vegetables and or fruit? And EC kind of nailed the one. So a normal meal for us will be like, let's get your protein, and then let's have some potatoes is the go-to every single time. Regular potatoes as well. It doesn't have to be sweet potatoes. Regular potatoes are good. And then different kids will do different. That's like the thing that we serve to both. And then Harley will have some pepper slices. Bodie will do some cherry tomatoes or carrot sticks. So it's like that's where it deviates a little bit away, as well as like what's the little thing that we're going to get them separately. But that's what we try to do. And what we try to be aware of is, oh my God, all they've had today is a peanut butter and jellies. 3 meals. Like that's what we're trying to like, to me, like that's not as bad as they've only had like, Lunchables, like a prepackaged thing. But that doesn't really fit our like real nutritional density type foods that we're looking for. So we try to control meals, and we control what happens at our house. And we let go of anything that happens kind of outside of that, other than we pack them lunch every day.
Yep. Same.
Good stuff.
Cool. Great. Love it. Next question. Second question we've got is from Christina. It's in our recover bucket. We know recovery is the number one ingredient to growth in all aspects of health and wellness. I'm 23 years old, an avid CrossFitter training for a marathon and looking to get my L1 and yoga certification. I'm super interested in learning current trends in the wellness world. I've tried Whoop, noticed recovery, super cool numbers and database all around my workouts and activity. But part of me believes that we should be in tune with our own bodies. And I was wondering what your thoughts were on this quote unquote recovery score, and is technology helping or hurting people's body awareness of how we truly feel? For example, if I see a low recovery score, am I not going to go as hard in my workout as I would if I just woke up and went to the gym? Is this giving people an excuse, or do you believe the information is accurate enough to follow? EC.
There's so much there. I'm going to try not to go after all the pieces, but yeah. So I like the point about, I think we should be in tune with our bodies. And I think arguably that will outperform anything like a Whoop or one of these recovery biomarkers. One of the things that I love to tell people is my friend John and I, he used to work at CrossFit as well. And we joked around that we would just program the Whoop that every single morning it would say to train. Like the person would look at it and get their data, but we would just force the app to just say, go train. Why? Because on average, people need to be training more. And what we find, and you'll find this just anecdotally in the space, is that no, it doesn't actually lead to better performance. And this is the problem with a lot of these recovery apps or whatever the prototype is of measuring recovery to optimize performance. No, the way that we measure to optimize performance is your performance. We don't need to look at recovery metrics to optimize performance. We look at what you're doing in the gym. And the way that people actually optimize performance is they have to reach a state of functional overreaching. And this is what they try to do with peaking and all of that stuff. But we try to get the athlete to overreach, and then they take a rest, and then they hopefully peak at the event that they want to peak at. We don't know if we timed that perfectly until after the fact. We actually have to go into this period of overreaching, and we start to see a little bit of performance die off. We actually have to have performance drop a little bit. Then we take a rest, and then we're hoping that we super compensate back to that peak level. And guess what? Sometimes it doesn't go perfectly, and there will be games athletes who will tell you, I peaked too soon. And that's what they learn over season. But anyway, the whole point is we have not been able to show that we have a good predictive recovery metric to predict performance. And right now, our best predictor of performance is your current performance. And to actually peak, you need to see a slight decrease of performance for about a period of 3-5 days, I think it is, to then back off and then peak according to, best practices.
Yeah, I think that's, there was a coach in our space that trained CrossFit Games athletes that really geeked out with a recovery tool. I don't know if it was the Whoop. I don't think it was. Okay. And his athlete was in the red, right? So in a state of overtraining, so they didn't have them train. And they came back the next day and they were in the red, so they didn't have them train. And they came back the next day and they were in the red, so they didn't have them train. And this went on, I don't know, this is like, it become urban myth at this point, so I don't know the actual truth, but it was something like they didn't train for 20 days. This is an athlete training to compete against the fittest athletes in the world, and they took that long of a period of time. To your point, they're not getting fitter during that period. And yes, EC is spot on in terms of how do you peak performance? You overload, then there is a state of recovery, and then you have a state of rehabilitation where you get better. And if you time it well, you allow for a super compensation. And then ideally, you have your next stress point at the peak of that super compensation. It's enough just to create the sufficient overload to create the next compensation. But as I've said before on this podcast, if you were able to do that perfectly, you would create a superhero. And no one can, and the Whoop isn't helping you do it. It's just, I think that's the, when I first started working with this, and, we were lucky enough to be working with heart rate variability because I trained these athletes, and people came up to us that were, hey, will you beta test this? And we were doing HRV stuff in 2009, It was with a heart rate monitor, and there wasn't a watch. You had to download it to a computer, and it would spit out information to you. 2 days later, because I had to run the algorithm and assess it. But we were playing with this for a long, long time. And all along for the next decade, everybody that I was working with was like, and by the way, just like how an athlete feels is actually the better thing to kind of lean into. So that's what we would do is when people would come in, we go, how do you feel? Don't give me pretty good on a scale of 1 to 10. What's your eagerness to train? How's your soreness level, and where's your stress and mindset? So we're getting this kind of not a holistic, but a 3 different pronged approach of that's a pretty good understanding of where they are. And most times that was not in line with what their wearable was telling them. And it seemed to be actually have a lag. So they would get that information would be faster than what the wearable was telling them. I now think of it as, because I've also, we've done a Whoop and an 8 sleep at the same time. And that doesn't give you it doesn't give you concurrent data. Those are conflicting. So I think the idea behind this is not using it as a prescription of what should I do. It should be a thing to validate how you feel. And if you feel something different, you should go with the feel. And I think of it in terms of, we have the NFL Combine going on right now. And if you're the type of general manager that is going to draft players based off of their performance at the Combine, you're probably not going to be in the league very often, very long. What you should do is go into the Combine with a feeling about a player, and then use their performance at the Combine, the data you're getting on them, as confirmation. See, I told you he was super athletic. See, I told you he was super explosive. This is exactly what we saw on the game film. Not, oh my gosh, this player ran a 4.2. We liked this other player that ran a 4.3, but let's go get that guy because he was faster. That might not translate to the field, just like what you're seeing through the wearable might not actually translate to the performance that you're trying to put out. So that's the way I think of these things now, is not like the thing that should dictate your training intensity, volume, or frequency, but more so like, does this confirm what I'm feeling? And if not, stick with the feeling.
I loved your initial point about the elite athlete and kind of the 20 days of rest. Find me the person who won the Olympics or the games and was not beat up. They are overtrained. You want to reach the top, you better believe you're not going to be 100% recovered. There's no way. And so that's the other thing too. It's like, are you selling optimal performance? Because optimal performance requires a lot of stress to the system and beyond, best recovery practices. But the other thing that I really love that you talked about is your kind of quick screen in person with the athlete, because an in-tune coach is always going to better predict what you should do on training than one of these things will ever do. And I think you mentioned that you asked about like kind of where their mindset was, soreness, readiness to train, something like that, eagerness. What you're already capturing there is some of the theory of what we think about overtraining, because we don't actually know what causes overtraining. Is it hormonal? Is it structural? You're actually just stress the muscles or there's a tear. Is it mental? Is it the autonomic nervous system, which is what they're trying to measure with HRV? So there's lots of different systems that could come into play to result in overtraining to a detriment of performance. And the things like the Whoop strap, they're harping on one piece of that, where when you have a quick screen of how does your body feel? Is your headspace right? Like, are you excited? You're already capturing a wider net than a single biometric.
That whole thing of like, show me any Olympian that isn't, I've talked about this before, but it's the rule of thirds. If you're trying to create anything great, whether it's a business, a family, or be a great author or be a great athlete, a third of the time, you're going to feel like crap. You're going to, like, that's part of the thing that you're signing up for. A third of the time, you should feel okay. Like, this is like, okay. And a third of the time are great days. Like, you're making improvements, you're making gains, you're putting pen to paper, your business scorecard is trending in the right direction, but it's not like that's the majority of the time. And if we're always trying to wait till optimal recovery before we go to do the work, we're not going to put in enough work.
I love it. Yeah.
Cool. We will wrap it up there. If you would like to get a question into a future episode of the show, head to chasingexcellence.email, sign up for our weekly newsletter. We will send out a link to a form on Fridays that you can use to submit a question, and we'll do our best to get it into a future episode. The link to that is in the show notes. We'll be back for our main conversation all about avoiding the anxiety and obsession that comes from trying to do all of the things we're supposed to be doing when it comes to our health. But first, a few words from some sponsors. We're brought to you this week by Hatch. We don't need to tell you about the importance of sleep since we talk about it nearly every week on the show. So here's something that can help you get to bed earlier and wake up better. Head to hatch.co/excellence to learn more about the Hatch Restore, an amazing device that can rewrite your entire sleep routine. It's designed to teach your body when it's time to go to bed and wake up so you can better prioritize rest. I've been using it to customize my bedtime routine with a selection of light and audio cues, and I've been alternating between 20 minutes of calming music while I read with listening to their Pillow Talk, which offers a bunch of different audio series designed to entertain you to sleep, all without screens that disrupt your rest. If you're still staring at your phone before getting to sleep, Pillow Talk is the perfect antidote. It'll give your brain something to latch onto as you settle into sleep, allowing you to finally, I say, commit to a screen-free bedroom. I'm going to assume the two of you do not bring your phones in your bedroom. I'm not going to ask. I don't want to be disappointed. Right now, Hatch is offering you $20 off your purchase of the Hatch Restore and free shipping. Just visit hatch.co/excellence to claim this offer. That's hatch.co/excellence for $20 off and free shipping. Don't miss out on this opportunity to revolutionize your sleep routine. We're also brought to you this week by Shopify. When I first started selling things on the internet way back in 2006, getting a store online and operational was hardly an easy task, if only we had access to something like Shopify. Lucky for all of us today, we do. Head to shopify.com/excellence to learn more about the global commerce platform that helps you sell at every stage of your business. Whether you're selling protein powders or you're training ebooks, Shopify helps you sell everywhere. It's got the internet's best converting checkout, up to 36% better compared to other leading commerce platforms. Plus, it's got an AI-powered all-star called Shopify Magic to help you sell more with less effort. So whether you're in the launch your online shop stage or did we just hit $1 million stage, Shopify's got you covered. Sign up for a $1 per month trial at shopify.com/excellence, all lowercase, shopify.com/excellence. Grow your business no matter what stage you're in with the tools, systems, ecosystem, and simplicity that only Shopify offers. Okay, my friends, workout. We've got two questions, which we don't usually do, but these two questions came in literally within an hour from each other. One is from Jeremiah, the other is from Jeremy.
What?
And I'm not kidding. They literally came in within an hour of each other.
That's one person.
I know, they're trolling you.
Yeah.
But that's not possible because they asked basically the same question twice. Why would they do that?
So that you would get on the podcast. That's exactly why they did it.
That's right. All right. Well, successfully, Jeremy. Here's from Jeremiah. With the popularity of continuous glucose monitors and all the rhetoric around sitting is the new smoking and taking walks after meals, how do you avoid becoming obsessed with avoidance of sitting and moving after meals? That's question one. This is from Jeremy. Second question. How do you not let health guidelines and overall principles become compulsive and create health anxiety when you don't have super urgent reasons to bring them to that level? A few examples. Stressing about not being able to go for a walk to lower your blood sugar because you have a meeting or because it's a blizzard outside. Hopping on a walking pad at the end of the night because you haven't hit X number of steps, and stopping every hour on a road trip because you need to get up every 30 to 60 minutes from sitting. So again, those are different questions, but they're the same question. So EC, I'd love to kick this off. You've got something, we've talked about it. I went back through the archives of Consistency Project. We talked about something you call the worried well many, many years ago, because we've been doing a consistency project for a while. Can you introduce, in case we haven't talked about it here, can you introduce what the worried well is? And we can kind of weave our way into answering Jeremy and Jeremiah's questions as we do.
Yeah. I didn't coin the phrase myself. I don't actually know who
I'm giving you
gets the credit
worried
for it,
well
but
TM.
It wasn't me. But yeah, it's meant to be people who are otherwise healthy or healthy by all conventional metrics, but they have a lot of health anxiety. And this population is very ripe for a lot of the wellness marketing, from tons of supplements they don't need to all these different health tech things that they don't need to lots of obsessive life behaviors. And to be perfectly honest, I was in that period for a while myself. I say this all the time, but I used to travel with my own balsamic vinegar so I wouldn't be exposed to certain salad oils. Yeah, I travel internationally with, TSA approved packets of balsamic vinegar, right? So I understand all of this. I did tons of testing through functional medicine. I spent thousands of dollars on different stuff and supplements for all these protocols when I was totally healthy. So I totally empathize with it. But I think it really preys on people's anxiety, this unknown that all of us face, that all of us have some level of health risk that we can't really control. So it preys on that a lot. And it preys on really that proactive type A persona that's like, are you doing all of the things?
I completely agree with that. And I think that the amount of information that is out there now is doing a disservice, not a service. It is a distraction, not helping us focus. And this is why we created our 5 factors and our prescription, to keep people focused on the first principles of what healthy living looks like. And as we know, it's how you eat, treat, sleep, think, and connect. But the idea behind this is, it's so easy now to worry about Is it my air fryer? Should I be doing air fryer? Well, I heard that if you grill your food, it's not good. What about red light therapy? All the rage about ice baths, and those strawberries, remember, they're not grown in the same soil that your grandparents did them, so the nutrient density is different. So you need to take this. So there's a lot out there to distract us. And if we don't get distracted, we stay focused on the things that will move. And by the way, I put in, make sure you go for a walk after your meal and make sure you get in your steps and make sure you're all those in the glucose, all of those things are a distraction away from the things that really matter, which are train 5 or 6 days a week, eat real food, sleep 8 hours, be curious, not judgmental, and surround yourselves with people that want to see you win. Mm-hmm. Challenge you, coach you, call you on your crap, no gossip, no drama, just good vibes and positivity. You do those things and get outside a little bit. That's the first principles. And the way that we think about this is all we need to do is get to 80% across those 5. Get to 80% across those 5 things. But what a lot of people will do is they'll lean into try to get from the 80 to the 90. And if we're talking about, the driving across country and getting out of your car every 30 minutes, which this is so funny. You talk about, EC, the worried well and how you used to be in that camp. Heather was driving back with our daughter Maya from a lacrosse game that she played in college, and they went down to Virginia, and she was this. So every 30 minutes they went out to do a set of wall balls. Every 30 minutes, they brought 2 medicine balls with them, and every 30 minutes, they jumped out to do a set of wall balls. She's like, okay, that's going to add a little bit of time. A set of wall balls takes 30 seconds. What they didn't account for was you have to pull off the exit and find an appropriate place to do these wall balls, so that 30-second turned into sometimes 10, 15, 20 minutes. This was it's supposed to be about an 8-hour drive that took them 20 hours. They almost didn't make it. It was insane. So yes, I get it. There are all these different protocols and there's all these things to focus on, but it's the same thing with anything is, the conversation then becomes, it's first principles. So if you want to become financially free, if you want financial sound practices, it comes down to just 4 or 5 things, invest something more, pay yourself first. Don't spend everything. Make sure you're minimizing fees, optimize taxes, diversification, and don't be emotional. Just let it go in there and sit and do its thing. And the people are like, yeah, I know, but what about crypto? It's yeah, what about hedges and swaps? And I saw that thing of dumb money about, shorting GameStop. And what about all these, currency fluctuations? It's yeah, we could sit in there. It's really fun. It's really sexy. It's cool conversations. You sound smart when you talk about it. It's also a distraction away from the major principles that are going to deliver you 80% of your results. And people aren't optimizing those. So this is where I always go back to all of these things is you're being distracted away from because, okay, you're getting out of the car every 30 minutes to do a set of wall balls, but, are we, how are we doing in terms of the non-judgment thing, which is what all of us could work more on.
Mm-hmm.
I do love your 5 factors and with the connect aspect. And I thought you would enjoy this. So there's this article I came across that they was looking at the research for healthy aging, and they came up with their list of 10 determinants of healthy aging.
Mm-hmm.
And
did you say
if you don't
aging
mind,
or eating? Which one?
Aging, healthy aging.
Cool. Yes, let's do it.
And so I hope you don't mind listening to these 10. Here we go. Physical activity, diet, self-awareness, outlook and attitude, lifelong learning, faith, social support, financial security, community engagement, and independence. Those are the 10. My whole profession is one of those. You could argue that diet is a minority of those. And so this is where when people are focusing on, and I can go into the science that we don't have evidence that glucose spiking post-meal actually leads to any clinical relevance in your long-term health. I can talk to you about all of that science, but I love something like this because it just puts it in such perspective. It's like, okay, great. Let's eat our whole foods. Now let's talk about our social support. Let's talk about our exercise. Let's talk about our lifelong learning. Let's talk about our purpose. And to me, it just like really reality checks all of these simple or these really detailed nutrition questions. And what I was going to say and add on to you, I don't think it just gets us to 80%. If you do each of these things independently to 80%, like 80% diet and 80% physical activity or whatever, however we're going to measure that, I think collectively they get us pretty close to 100%. The collective is so much better than any one of them being perfect that I don't even think that somebody shut off, let's say at 80% of their potential, if they really are attacking all of these things.
I love that. And people, I think it's still, I when I lay these things out, I'm like, hey, so this is like, if you were to rewind 50 years ago and you talk to like a doctor about nutrition, they would think you're a quack. Like no, nutrition, it's not about nutrition. Like if someone's sick, they got to take pills. Like, and now we just like, it's just like, it's a part of the lexicon. We know it to be true. And then this is crazy, but only about 25 years ago did that become the case for physical activity. They thought that nobody, like in the 70s is when jogging started. In the 80s, there was no health clubs. Health clubs did not exist for the public the way they do now in the 60s. They weren't a thing. So in the 70s, jogging became commonplace. And in the 80s is when health clubs became something. So up until the 80s, it wasn't even about exercise. And if you went to the gym, it was to look better. So it took until about the 90s for them to recognize that, and that you were forward thinking in the 90s if you were exercising for health and wellness. Well, now what's coming me into vogue a little bit is the sleep thing. And people are starting to understand that sleep has this big impact. That's about as far as we get. If you talk about eat, sleep, and movement, exercise, that's a pretty advanced thing in terms of longevity conversation. And when you start to go to the other 7 that EC just listed out, sense of purpose, well-being, social connection, people go, there they are. There's the woo-woo people. There it is. See, like it's all foofy. That's not real science. I can promise, as much as I can promise anything, that in a decade or 2, these will be the commonplace. Everyone will understand it to be this thing. But right now, it sounds really soft. It sounds really weird because, no, it's not about that. It's about making sure you don't have heart disease and cancer and making sure that, you're lean and not obese. It's like this stuff is as impactful. And just like EC said, we could talk about the science behind whether the debate is there about post-meal insulin, blood sugar spikes and insulin is actually efficacious or not, or is it detrimental? Should we be thinking about it? We can do the same thing for health. And we can do the same thing for connection with other people. We can do the same thing with stress. We can do the same thing with life purpose. We can draw all those connections to the scientific parts of that thing. It's just that it's not the commonplace quite just yet in the conversation about longevity, but it is coming for sure. When we started this, EC, when we started this thing and we started going around the world and doing the level 1 seminar and we started the nutrition talk, people were like, oh my God, nutrition matters? Like, fast forward, 15, 20 years and like, yeah, it's accepted. Like everyone knows that. Mm-hmm. But the other stuff, like you just said, is let's talk about your purpose. Mm-hmm. Let's talk about, the way that you're walking through life. Like, what are your values? Like when you go home, does that feel like a really safe place that you enjoy being? Like, the workplace. How's the workplace? Like, an easier way to do that instead of the 5 factors is you go, okay, let's make sure you combine everything to a 4th factor, which is stress. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. It's stress. It's like emotional, mental, spiritual, psychological stress. But we break it into a couple different categories of your relationships and the way you think about things.
That's actually how I said it. At the CrossFit Health Summit I actually just went to, and my 4th bucket was just stress. But that's where I lumped in community and financial stuff, because let me tell you, if you don't have financial security, that stress is a big problem. Mm-hmm. Or if you don't have any social support, it's stress. Or if it's a mental outlook, and, so I do think stress is a nice catch-all, although it's a quite large bucket that can cover a lot of aspects of the diet. Right. Yeah.
Totally.
I'm curious from both of you, why do you think it's so much easier to narrow in on continuous glucose monitor or whether I'm walking after I eat, as opposed to what you guys just laid out, which is like, to us, obviously, because we talk about it all the time, it's so obvious, but the connection, the relationships, the stress, all these other things, why is it so easy to narrow in on and focus? And so much so that it's literally creating anxiety and more stress in folks. These little things, why are we so attracted to them? Is it simply that somebody's trying to sell us on each one of those things? They're trying to sell us a product, a supplement, a thing. And in order to sell it to us, they have to first instill in us the fear that we have a problem that only they can solve. And nobody's over here trying to sell us a product on building a better relationship or being less stressed or even sleeping more to a degree. Mm-hmm. Is that the overly simplified perhaps, but is that kind of the reason why this worried well exists?
Oh man. Well, on one hand, diet isn't going very well for a large percentage of the population. Yep. So you could argue that we still have a lot to solve on the diet front, even though I think we don't need a ton of this health tech to do it, that just as a population average, we have plenty of work to do there. But for people that tend to latch onto this stuff, it's a little bit of the, like I said, the fear of the unknown. We like to have as much control as possible. It's really unnerving to think that you don't have as much control as you think. But I also think there's this mentality again, and that's why I think it kind of resides a little bit with that type A persona. And we've talked about this a little bit, is that, 1% better every day. And I totally understand the general sentiment of not just resting on your laurels and improving and growing as a person. So I don't want to be like this, dud who's like, oh, I'm great. Like everything's fine. No need to change. But I do think there's also this underlying stuff within the nutrition realm that every time I do any action, it's leading to more of a better outcome. And there is, in fact, the time when you are done from a clinical relevance point of view. That, again, once you have like normal fasting glucose, there is no better to be had. There is no more better to get you in terms of your metabolic health. I mean, of course, we can look at other markers, but you know what I mean? Like, I think there's this idea that, okay, now if I do all of these other things, I will continue to get more benefit, when that is not there. And instead, it's becoming a distraction to then go look at these other areas of your life.
I think it's sexy. And I mean, it's alluring. It pulls you in because it's so concrete. It's right there. It's today I was this, tomorrow I am this ±2. Like you can, it's a measurable thing. So it's there. It's kind of like, whether you take the analogy to sports or business. So you have a business scorecard and like what's our customer acquisition cost? What's our payback period? What's our average client lifetime value? What's our retention rate? And those things are there. And yeah, like, okay, they're measurable, but like, what's the brand sentiment? A little bit harder to measure. Yeah, we could do an NPS score, maybe something like that. But what's the culture of your organization? Like that's that health aspect. What's the health of your team? What's the health of your organization? It's a little bit more intangible, so it's harder to put a metric to it. So most of us in today's data-driven analytical society, I mean, we have, you can get your MBA in data analytics now. Like that wasn't a thing 30 years ago. It didn't exist. We're just like a data-driven society. So, if we were to take it to athletics, it's the same thing with the NFL Combine. Like, okay, Tom Brady was drafted in the 6th round because he didn't do a very good job on the measurables. Mm-hmm. But your health, I'm going to use that word as a crossover, your health as a asset to the team couldn't be measured that way. And not everything, this is Einstein's thing, but not everything that can be measured matters. Mm-hmm. And not everything that matters can be measured. So it's this thing that's over-reliance on data. Mm. And it's gonna always pull us in because it feels like it tells you the whole story. And it doesn't. So we just need to kind of like use it as a thing that's like, it's there. We don't need to ignore it. Like it doesn't need to be this thing that we like say, damn the data, and but we can use it as a in addition to what we're trying to do, not as the totality.
I think, Amazon Prime has made it worse for us. We have that immediacy. Like we need to know what we're doing is working. And that's what some of these devices give people. like the reassurance
Right.
that what they're doing is, quote, leading them in the right direction. Now, the truth is it isn't always the right data, but they want to know what they're doing. And I see this all the time in my master classes. I say after a diet change, we need at least 2 weeks of consistency to know what it's doing to your weight. And that sounds so short, but when you're living through the days of day in and day out and adhering to this gosh darn diet and watching those gosh darn water weight fluctuations, it's really hard to adhere to. They want to know now, like, is this actually going to pay off? And that's just a really hard mental challenge to overcome. So these health tech stuff, they give you that immediacy that is, I think, reassuring to people in their efforts.
All right, my friends, we're going to wrap it up there. Thank you to Jeremy and Jeremiah, assuming you are two different humans. We'll be back with a quick shout out and a recommendation roundup where we'll each offer a few things that we've been enjoying lately. But first, a few words from a sponsor. Brought to you this week by OneSkin. OneSkin has developed an amazing skincare line powered by a scientifically proven peptide called OS1. You can learn more and get your hands on some for yourself at oneskin.co. OneSkin isn't just a surface level fix. Their products address skin aging at the cellular level. With the summer months quickly approaching, consider stocking up on their OS01 Shield, which is an SPF that not only prevents UV-induced aging, but also repairs cellular aging. They're offering you fine folks an exclusive 15% off their products. Just use the code EXCELLENCE at checkout on oneskin.co. Give your skin the TLC it deserves with OneSkin. Use the code EXCELLENCE for 15% off. oneskin.co. Here's to a healthier, younger looking skin with OneSkin. We're also brought to you this week by Cozy Earth. Let's talk sleep, my friends. You know it, you love it, you want more of it. That's where Cozy Earth comes in. Head to cozyearth.com and use the code EXCELLENCE for 35% off their entire website. Cozy Earth's bedding products are a game changer. One touch of their sheets and you will be blown away by their superior softness. But it's not just about comfort. Cozy Earth's bedding is temperature regulating, so no more waking up because you're too hot or you're too cold, and you can feel good about using their products because they're made from viscose from bamboo, which is a sustainable resource. Cozy Earth bedding is not only luxuriously soft, but it's also crafted to last. They stand by the quality and longevity of their products with a 100-night sleep trial and a 10-year warranty. That's right, 10 years. That's a decade of unparalleled comfort and support. Incorporating Cozy Earth products into your self-care routine can enhance your sleep quality and overall wellness. Prioritize your health today with Cozy Earth. Don't wait, upgrade your nights and transform your days by pointing your internet machine to cozyearth.com. Use the promo code EXCELLENCE for an exclusive 35% off. Enjoy the secret to better sleep with Cozy Earth. Okay, quick shout out. This is from, so when folks out there, when you sign up for one of the premium memberships over there on Substack, and I didn't know this until people started doing this, but you can leave us a little note. A little note. And so this is actually from John after he signed up for the premium membership. He says, I've been listening to Chasing Excellence for years, and there has been no single source of information or knowledge sharing that I can pinpoint to have made a bigger difference in my life personally and professionally. Ben and Patrick have passed along knowledge from which I've been able to recognize how I can be a better person in all my personal and professional relationships every single day. So thank you to John for the note.
Awesome, John.
And
Thanks,
for
man.
jumping into the premium membership. All right, cool down. We're going to do a recommendation roundup where we just give one or two things that we've been enjoying and would like to recommend. Sometimes we do books, podcasts, habits, activities. EC, as our guest, I will allow you to go first.
I had to look up
What do
the
you got
name.
for us?
I had to look up the name of the podcast. My friend sent it to me, but it was actually about, it's Wisdom from the Top with Guy Raz is the podcast, but it was the episode by the new CEO of Taco Bell, Mark King. And just his whole story was really interesting. And I know that's kind of a random, but sometimes I like to look into stuff that has nothing to do with what I'm doing because I'm too neck deep in all of my diet and nutrition stuff. But anyway.
What was the engaging part? Yeah.
His background was in golf. He was part of Callaway and the other big company, that Taylor, for a long time and all of that stuff. And then he's made a segue to being a CEO of Taco Bell. And just imagining that as a career trajectory was just really insightful to go from a sales guy to a CEO of a whole new company, and how he also had to come on to Taco Bell during the pandemic and kind of change stuff. And I think there's just something really interesting about how companies have to change so fast. Even companies like Taco Bell, which are just they've made it. The struggles to keep up with the changing demands of something like the pandemic, I thought was really interesting. But also just his background to what a interesting career hockey stick to the left.
Golf stick to the left.
Right, there we go. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a wonderful irony of you recommending anything with Taco Bell.
I know.
Kudos to you. All right, I'll go next. So Ben, I'll give you the last word. I've got a couple, kind of a hodgepodge of recommendations, things I've been enjoying. One is a book that is, Ben, you and I talk about here on the show, like the sort of the linchpin books that like you just got to read it if you want to be part of this conversation. And we've got the same over on another project of mine, Optimal Agency. And one of those books is called Your Money or Your Life by Vicki Robin. I don't know. Have you guys either of you read this?
I have not.
It's like it's just kind of like a fundamental text for the conversations that John and I have over on Optimal Agency. And it's taken me a while to pick up, but I finally started to pick it up. Really, really good. Highly recommend it. And I would recommend, if folks are interested in this, kind of a trifecta of books that sort of all speak around the same thing, but in much different ways. So Your Money or Your Life by Vicki Robin, alongside or pair with Essentialism by Greg McKeown, and 4,000 Weeks by Oliver Burkeman. If you read those three books, again, they're coming at something very similar from very different angles. And I didn't read them all as a trifecta. This is me kind of like having read them, like, oh, that's an interesting pairing. But if you haven't read any of those, that could be a really powerful 1, 2, 3 punch.
Wow.
So that's one thing. Next thing is a Netflix movie. It's a fiction, but it's based on a real life person called Naiad. Have you guys seen this? It's on
watched
Netflix.
It.
Yeah. So we just watched it over the weekend. And it's about Diana Naiad, who was a long distance swimmer who did a bunch of really impressive things and then tried when she was like 28 to swim from Cuba to Florida. And she failed. She couldn't make it, didn't do it, stopped swimming effectively. And then when she was 60, she was like, I'm doing this. Like, this is happening. And I won't ruin it, but it's pretty obvious because they made a Netflix. She did finally figure it out. It took her 4 years and 5 tries. So she was like 64 by the time she did it. But, I was joking with Michelle. I was like, I put this movie on because I was interested in it, but I put it on Saturday afternoon because I was thinking like everybody would just leave me alone for 2 hours and I could just watch a movie. I was like, Michelle will take a nap and the boys will be too bored because it's about a 60-year-old woman swimming. All 4 of us sat on the couch and watched the whole thing together, and it was really cool. So it's a really good film. And then the last thing, totally random, but because you're on EC, I want to do it, which is that I started to eat oatmeal every morning, which is kind of silly. I've just never done it. I've never thought to do it. And then you did a post like, I don't know, months ago now about oatmeal. And the thing that made me think about it, like, oh, I should try, like all of the comments of like, I love oatmeal. I've been eating oatmeal every morning for 20 years. I'm like, why have I never done this? And so I do oatmeal with some collagen powder and some raisins and a banana. And it's just like, it's become my breakfast and it's so easy. And it's just like a super good way to get almost 20 grams of protein and, 100 grams of carbs. Never done it before. Never thought to do it before. Have done it recently and loved it. So that's my nutrition focused recommendation. All because of you, EC.
Oatmeal.
For some reason, oatmeal, like this is really random. For some reason, oatmeal gives me crazy gas. I don't know why.
That
Have you ever heard of that?
The beta glucan.
Well, but
fiber.
nothing else does. Like nothing else with all that fiber does. Like it's just like something about oatmeal. I wish it didn't because I was on a kick of it for a while and I was like, it can't be the oatmeal. So man,
are you sure you're not buying like the brand with the prebiotic fiber put in or something?
Oh, I'm sure I am. Yeah, that's not. Yeah, the oatmeal with extra fiber and the probiotics and prebiotics and all the rest of it. But
that might be it.
Yeah, but I do wish that I could do oatmeal better because I think it is phenomenal. It's a great way to start the day, especially the way that you just described it, which is so tasty. Okay. The thing that I've been watching recently, and if you're from New England, I think that it's a must. If you're not, it's a good one because it's not a hype up thing at all. But it's this Netflix. Nope. It's an Apple TV. Is that what Apple is?
Apple TV Plus.
Apple TV Plus series called Dynasty. It's about the dynasty of the New England Patriots with Tom Brady at the helm and Bill Belichick. And a lot of people in New England are really disappointed in this. They're about 6 episodes in, and they're releasing one every week, I think, or 2 a week. and we're at 6. And people in New England are a little bit pissed about it because they just blasted through 2 Super Bowls in like 3 minutes, but they spent a full episode on Aaron Hernandez in the murder case and suicide. They spent a full episode on Spygate. So this is not a pro-Patriot thing at all. But you know how, and people that know this show, I'm a sucker for behind the scenes, particularly a sucker for behind the scenes of high performance, particularly a sucker for behind the scenes high performance business or sports. I also love it in the arts. So I love like songwriter, which is another great, where they talk about how musicians create songs. But this is a really good things that I never knew. And I'm a big follower, and I listened to sports radio in Boston that I didn't know about the Patriots and what went on. They're giving a different viewpoint into this thing. And certain people come off well, and certain people come off very, very poorly. So there are heroes and villains, and there's drama. And I think it's a really well put together, unbiased, and I think that's unbiased approach to how they created this dynasty.
That's what I was going to ask, because the nutrition documentaries get a little fear mongering. So you think it's accurate though?
I don't think anything is 100% accurate.
Yeah.
Everyone's coming from someone's viewpoint, and the nutrition documentaries are probably the worst of those. So, because that's the reason they create them.
Right.
But this is, I'm sure, and they're trying to, if anything, they're trying to create drama with this, but they're trying to do it not in the look how amazing this Patriots team was, and what we got fed here was the Patriot way, and the reason that they were so successful is because they'd figure out how to run an organization, and this kind of pops the lid on that and says, no, not necessarily. It might be for other reasons, and maybe the organization isn't this thing that we should be putting on a pedestal.
Cool.
Brilliant. Thank you, my friends. EC, thank you so much for joining us. We'll do this again soon.
Thank you.
Thanks, EC. Yeah, very cool to have you again.
Check out OptimizeMeNutrition.com. It's probably the best place to go see all of EC's things. Also find her on Instagram, same thing. We'll link to everything in the show notes. Thank you, everybody, there for sending us your questions. Thank you for your ratings and your reviews. Ben and I will be back next week for a new episode of Chasing Excellence.